Hi everyone, those that join us now. We're going to be starting in a couple minutes. We're waiting for more people to join us. So just hang in there. So I'm going to be starting like in 1 or 2 minutes. Okay, so. All right.
Hi, Gary, it's Judy. I'm going to go back to mute.
Hi, Judy.
Hi.
Let's see.
My first Zoom meeting.
Zoom meeting. Besides all of those that we did to create this, that was a good practice, though.
That was a Zoom meeting. You're right. This isn't my first Zoom meeting. Okay, correct.
Yeah. Okay, guys, let's get started. We have a long to go. So welcome everyone to this event of the Melrose Center, Conversation with the Gary Williams. For those that doesn't know what is the Melrose Center is part of the Orange County Library System in Orlando. And we are a creative and collaboration area of the library. We are in the downtown area in the main library. And we, in the Melrose Center, we have photo studio, audio studio, we have a video studio, we have a Fab Lab, we have a VR room, and all these services are free to use for car members. And this is part of the events we do in the Melrose Center. Before we start, I need to do an announcement, and that would be that wait a second. This project is made possible in part by the Institute of Museum and Library Services. These people help us to create these events, so we appreciate the help. So I know that many of you know Gary, but I would like to do a little brief introduction of him. Gary is a long time for a journalist, very experienced for a journalist. I can tell is one of my role models. I've been seeing Gary's pictures in El Nuevo Dia since I was a kid. And then I have the honor to work with him late in the 90s. Gary, his picture has been traveled the world. We can say that he's an international photographer, mainly in the Caribbean. He used to work for UP, AP, EFE, and those news agencies. His photographs have been published in the New York Times and around the world. So I have a lot of respect of Gary, and with no more introductions, I would like to let you guys with Gary. So Gary, welcome, and here we are.
Hey guys, welcome. Thank you for having me, Pedro. Yeah. It's really nice to be here, and I hope everybody is going to put up with my first Zoom conference.
Yeah. So Gary, we have a PowerPoint presentation that we put together, and we put it in chronological order. And these pictures have a history behind, and it's amazing. Actually, to put this together was really hard because Gary have an overwhelming amount of pictures, and we was, fighting. Hey, you leave this out, Gary. I know this picture is good, but we don't have much time.
You left 90% out.
Debating about all these things. So we put together this PowerPoint, and Gary he have stories behind these pictures and the assignments. It's not only the pictures, but the assignment itself for the different stages in the Nuevo Dia. Actually, something that I didn't know is that Gary, well, he was working for No Dia. He also was working for AP. And he was, you know, working for both. And I didn't know that. I just learned that during this preparation of this PowerPoint. So Gary, let's start with the first picture that we put here, and that would be this one, the St. Thomas Caribbean air crash. And you have a very interesting story about this.
Some people might say it's a little sneaky, but basically, I had just started at the paper and in 1970, and I got a call from the boss, Carlos Castañeda, who was a genius. He put the newspaper together and designed it. And he yelled out Gringo, which was going to be my new nickname for the rest of my career. And he said, Gringo, there's an airplane crash in St. Thomas. Go, go, go. So there was no secretary to call or anybody. So I figured out how to get there. I got on the Antilles airboat, which was running out of the San Juan, old San Juan airport, in pretty close to the newspaper where we were in Puerto de Tierra. And I got there, and Trans-Caribbean had about 10 people there, and they were trying to book the flight, book the seaplane, because the airport was closed. So the only way to get in was by seaplane. And I asked the vice president, I said, could I get on the plane? And he said, sure, if we have room. And I said, okay, great. I'm sitting there waiting, and as I'm waiting, they're talking to the people from Antilles, the captain of the flight. And I see a teletype, the old teletype go by, and it says from the San Juan Star, it says, please do not take off without waiting for our photographer and our reporter. And as soon as I saw that, I ripped it off the teletype and nobody was looking. And sure enough, I got on the plane with, I was the only person, the only journalist to get on the plane. And as we're taxiing away from the airport, I see Pipo Grajales and the reporter from the San Juan Star driving up to the terminal. They would have missed it anyway, so I didn't feel too bad. But when I got over there, it was about 6 o'clock in the evening. And it was right at the end of the runway. I had to take a cab from the harbor to the place, and it was a little bit difficult, but we got there, and I got several pictures, and then I decided, they told me that people had been moved to the hospitals. I knew where the hospital was. I had lived in St. Thomas a few years earlier, so I knew a little bit about the place. And I went up to the hospital. It's a madhouse with doctors and nurses and people running around, and police and first responders. And I opened this door, and on the right-hand side, you'll see I took one quick picture of this gentleman with his head in his hand, and it turns out it was the pilot of the plane. And I closed the door, and I came back, and then I got to the airport because they had opened it up, because this was at the end of the runway, and it was off the runway, over the road, so up on the side of a hill. And so I got on the flight, and as I'm leaving, here comes Pipo Grajales and the San Juan Star. They were arriving by the plane that I was going to be taking off on. But it was pretty late. It was 9:30, 10 o'clock at night by then, and so there wasn't a lot of pictures available. And when we ran this picture the next day, I walked into my boss's office, Carlos Castañeda, and I said, Carlos, how come you use this out of focus picture so big? Because to me, it was, it was available light, and I didn't have a flash. I didn't want to let him know I was there. And and he turned to me and he said, well, I'm using it. He used it full page. And he says, I'm using it full page because this makes the reader think that the picture is very important and very good. And I learned something that day. So that's what I learned, that the bigger you use it, the more. Now, Carlos had a magazine background. He had come from Life magazine, Life in Espanol. So he was used to publishing big pictures.
Mm-hmm. Okay, let's go to the next one.
Great picture, guy.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. This was my first baseball game. in 1970, I got sent to do a story on on Orlando Cepeda, who was receiving an award from the government. The same award would later be called the Roberto Clemente Award. After about a year later, Roberto died in an airplane crash. But anyway, I'm here with Orlando, and I didn't have the sports lens. I didn't have a long telephoto lens. I was shooting with I think the longest lens I had was a 105. Standing on the field in Atlanta, this was in Atlanta, Georgia, we're playing the San Francisco Giants. And I got one picture, thank goodness, of Orlando in action. And after the game, we walk into the clubhouse, and I had met Orlando at his house. We were doing feature pictures for a couple of days before the game. And so we walked into the dugout, and we went into the clubhouse, and Orlando put his arm over me, and he yelled out, "Hey, Henry, sign a ball for the kid." I was 19 years old at the time. And Henry Aaron got up and went to the ball bag and got a ball and signed it for me. And then he sat back down, and I took the picture here. And this picture really never got used because I was doing a story on Orlando Cepeda. And years ago, I was scanning in some of the negatives that I recovered, and I found it, and it's one of my favorites.
Yeah, he's a very good shot. It's really sharp. Okay, here we are with Mr. Richard Nixon.
Yes, Richard Nixon. This was
actually,
right.
let me make a comment before you. It's interesting. Look the cover in 1971, and you can translate it that they're gonna raise the gasoline and the electricity. So nothing have changed since then. We still have the same problem.
That's true. We run in a circle. Well, this was fairly easy. The president was arriving by Air Force One, and he was going to Keneal Bay in St. John. And the plane could not land in St. Thomas because it was too short. That's why that airplane crashed that we saw before. The plane was landing, and it didn't have enough runway, and it ran out of runway, and it was a very short runway. It was called a Black Star runway. So Nixon was on Air Force One. I think it was a 707 at that time. And he came into St. Croix, and we got over to St. Croix, and I landed there by a Prin Air flight, I think it was, and came out, and there was a few journalists there, and we made a line, and the president came down. He came out of the plane, and the press secretary said he's probably going to go straight to there'll be no interviews. But Nixon broke protocol, and he walked over to the journalists and started taking handshakes with people in the line. And this picture made it in Life magazine, in the last edition of Life magazine. Mm-hmm. And later on, I have a picture that made it in the when Life magazine came back. But so I had this picture, and it was a good picture. I was right up next to him most of the time. The picture on the right, my boss said, Carlos told me when I got back, he said, "This is a great picture. You should send it to the White House." So I sent it up to the White House. I sent him 3 copies, 11 by 14, which was the biggest we could print in those days. And he returned it, signed, and dedicated it to me. And I have it framed somewhere. I haven't used when he got thrown out of office. I put it in a closet. I put it in a closet. But,
that's funny. Okay.
Okay, this was my first foreign assignment. Another day, the darkroom in El Nuevo Dia in our first building in Puerto de Tierra was right across the office from Carlos's office. And once again, I hear "Gringo," and I go in. I said, "What's up?" And he says, "Go to Haiti. Papadopoulos has just died." So, or at least they announced that he just died. So once again, I made all the arrangements. I flew in by myself. When I got to the airport, I was put with an AP photographer named Steve Starr. I was put with another photographer, Don Charles. I I'm getting this name wrong, from the New York Times, and another photographer from Agence France Presse, but I can't remember his name, and Dirk Halstead. We all ended up in a cab with a soldier with a M1 carbine, and they took us to the police station. And that was interesting in itself because the police station was crowded with open boxes of mail. Apparently they were the customs house also. But anyway, we got clearance. We ended up in the palace and we waited, and I learned a whole bunch of stuff about how to be a photojournalist from those 4 photographers. They were giving me tips, and I think the number one thing I got was grab your position and hold it. And I grabbed my position behind the glass. He was in a glass refrigerated coffin, which we all started to talk about, well, maybe he's been dead longer than they would let on, because why would they keep him in a refrigerated coffin? But anyway, they opened it up to the public, and the man on the right came in and he started, and this made the front page. We had to transmit it from the Haitian telephone company, and Dirk Halstead was with UPI at the time, and he had a transmitter, and he had to tell the operators not to listen in because they would listen in to censor the phone calls. But by listening in, it would interrupt our analog signal going over the telephone line, making the photo transmission back to the UPI's main office in New York City. But eventually we got our pictures out, and the reporter came over and handed us the story that he had written on a typewriter. And we put it on the photo machine, and we transmitted it that way, so it wasn't censored either. And then the next day, we went out, and we had an incredibly crowded funeral procession from the palace to the cemetery. And I saw thousands and thousands of people swaying in unison in the heat. It was very hot. It was very hot. It was so hot that we got to a small, a little supermarket, Colmado, and on the wall were Coca-Cola bottles. And I said, "Could I have one of those?" Because I didn't speak French very well. And the guy reached off the wall and handed me a hot Coca-Cola. I drank it because it was so hot. Any liquid would do.
Cool.
On the photo, let me say quickly, on the photo on the left is Baby Doc Duvalier, his mother, and Baby Doc became president for life.
Is he still?
Oh no, he passed away, and he passed away in Haiti. He went into exile, I think, after about 5 years of being president for life. There was a coup d'etat, and they threw him out of the country, and he was living in France. But he came back and tried to make a run of it, and then eventually he passed away of natural causes, and that's all I know about him, really.
Okay. So Muhammad Ali.
Muhammad Ali came to Puerto Rico right after the Thriller in Manila. He was going to fight. His next title fight was a man named Jean-Pierre Koopman. Jean-Pierre Koopman was the Belgian champion, or the European champion at the time. And we went to the hotel where the El San Juan, and I had a reporter with me, and I had done a little bit of freelance work with Don King because he had a whole bunch of Puerto Rican boxers who were champions at the time. So Don said, "Okay, Gary, you're going up to the room first." So we went up, the 3 of us, and we got into the room. And as I'm standing at the end of the bed, Mohammed's on the picture on the right shows him holding some cue cards, and those cue cards has all his sayings. And in his sayings is like floats like a butterfly, stings like a bee. But this is at the end of his career, and he's memorizing them because I think he was starting to feel the effects of Parkinson's on his memory. And the pictures were very good. I didn't think they were very good. We spent an hour standing over his bed, and I was a little bit upset because I didn't have anything but him in bed. And so I finally said, Mohammed, can we go downstairs and maybe get some pictures with the crowd in the lobby, or, and she said, sure, let's go. So we all go down and we get some pictures, but I was shooting with no flash. I didn't have a flash. And it was very dark in that lobby, and the pictures were out of focus. I'm glad I had these pictures from upstairs, but we got a couple pictures. He shadow boxed into the lens, and I made a couple pictures. We got something, but it wasn't as good as these. Eventually, I'm at training, and Cynthia Vise, a reporter for the Associated Press, walks up and says, Gary, can you do me a favor? Can you get me into, I'd like to do an interview. And I said, sure, I'll see, let's see. So I walk up to the corner while he's in the training, in the ring, in a function room of the hotel. And I said, Mohammed, I have the AP here. She would like to do an interview. Okay, let's go. So the three of us go up to the room after the training, and he's in this white robe. We get up there, then we sit on a couch, and they sit on a couch, and I'm sort of wandering around. I take a couple pictures of them, more for her than anything else. And I walking around, all of a sudden I hear, Gary, get this bitch out of here. And I go, oops. So I come running into the room. I said, what's going on? What's going on? And they say, oh, I don't want her here. She doesn't belong in here. She's asking the wrong questions. And he went, and I said, let's go.
Wow.
And we got out the door, and I turned to Cynthia, who was a very close friend of mine. I said, Cynthia, what did you ask him? He says, well, we heard rumor that his wife was in the room next to him, and his girlfriend, his future wife, was in the room across the hallway. And when I asked him about that is when he got a little upset. So.
Oh, wow. Interesting.
Yes.
Okay.
Here we have, on the picture on the left, is the Pope's very first trip outside of the Vatican after he how do you say, won the Pope's papacy? I don't know. I don't know how to say. But anyway, after he was named Pope, he came to the Dominican Republic, and we flew over, and I had Luis Ramos, our chief photographer, and myself were there. And we were put on a flatbed truck about 1,000 meters from where the plane ended up. Taxiing the El Italia plane came in and taxied to its place, and we were 1,000 meters away. I had a long lens, but it wasn't that long. So we all jumped. I mean, everybody, there must have been about 100 photographers and reporters. We all jumped off the flatbed, go running across the tarmac, and we got right up to the Pope, and we got plenty of pictures. And when he came down the steps, he did the first time, he kissed the ground. And I shot it with what I thought was black and white film, but I had put, because it was the Pope, I had put in a roll of Kodachrome in one camera, and that's the camera that I shot the picture of him kissing the ground. So I did not really have a picture, because Kodachrome takes at least 2 weeks to be processed and shipped back to Puerto Rico. So Ramos had it. Yeah. We were okay, and we went. You don't
have that. You don't have that slide. You don't have it.
I have the slide. It's in the newspaper's archive. And,
okay.
Most of my pictures are in the newspaper's archive, all of them. I managed to take, when I left, I managed to take my very best negatives that I thought were my best negatives. I'm glad I did, because when I went back in 1994, the area where I had put all the negatives, and when we converted over to digital, was in a new newspaper called Primera Hora that Giuliano knows a little bit about. And we put it in the basement there and put all the negative files from 20 years into this room. And somebody from management at that new newspaper needed the space, and they went in 2002 or 2003, and they threw out all the negatives just so somebody could have an office.
Oh, wow.
I was very happy that I took what I did when I left in 2000. So I left the paper in 2000.
Cool.
So the picture on the right was used as a poster when the Pope came to Puerto Rico. I think it was taken in Haiti. I'm not too sure. I don't, maybe it was the Dominican Republic. It could have been the Dominican Republic. I just don't.
Okay.
I just don't remember.
Hey, Gary, before we continue, I forgot to introduce myself. My name is Pedro. I'm part of the Merrill Center, and our co-host today is Juan. He's co-hosting this event with us. And for those that doesn't know or don't know, that Gary is in Thailand. And for Gary, it's very early in the morning. So he did a sacrifice to be with us today. He's not an early person, he told me. Okay.
The problem is I'm an early person. I go to bed at 4 o'clock in the morning. I had to get up at 5 to do this.
Oh, okay. All right.
This is an interesting picture, sequence of pictures. I have plenty of pictures. These were exclusive. There was a riot going on at La Princesa in Old San Juan, and it's surrounded by a large wall. Old San Juan is surrounded by a wall. And I was working in my first wife's store, and we heard somebody called me and said there's a riot going on. Get your camera. I had my cameras in the car. So I ran over to the wall, which was right across the street from where my store was. And I looked down and I look into this little plaza. I guess it's a courtyard. I look into this courtyard, and all of a sudden people start being thrown out as the guards start beating them. The picture on the left shows the warden going, "Stop, please stop. You can't do this." Wow. But they just keep hitting them and hitting them. Meanwhile, all the journalists are in the front of this. I could see them from the wall. Excuse me. They were in the front of the prison. Well, when these pictures, the picture on the left was front page of the newspaper. And when the pictures were published, some of the prisoners filed a case citing overcrowding, and they closed the prison. It's now the Department of Tourism in Old San Juan. So pictures can have an effect. They can make change.
From where you took this? From the top, from the wall on the top?
Yes, I took, where El Mundo used to be, or the right there, El Imparcial up on the top. I think I'm trying to remember I've totally forgotten the names of the streets. I'm sorry, it's been a while. But I took it from there. There's a little park in there, and you could. I don't know why other journalists didn't show up. I guess they didn't think that anything was going to be happening in the back of the prison.
Cool.
Very lucky. Being in the right place at the right time. Exactly. That's what I tend to do. I tend to be in the right place at the right time. I'm not a very good photographer. I'm a very lucky photographer. with a lot of preparation. You got to prepare yourself to be there. I always used to say that you can tell young photographers would come up to me when I was the boss at the paper, and they would say, what should I study? What should I do? And I say, well, I can teach you how to develop a print, or I can teach you how to do a digital photo, but I can't teach you how to get in, and I can't teach you how to get out. That you're going to have to do on yourself, because you either got it or you don't. And for some reason, I have always had it, and a lot of photojournalists have it. You've got to be able to find the spots to make these pictures. This picture here, I actually made. I made happen. Walter Mondale was just elected the day before to a vice president with Jimmy Carter, and he took the press pool and flew down to Kinneil Bay in St. John, and AP called me and told me to go over and get a picture of the vice president and try and get some palm trees. That was what they said about everything. Every time they asked for a picture out of Puerto Rico, they wanted to see palm trees in the picture so that they could recognize it as a tropical place. So I fly over to St. Thomas. I take the ferry boat into Kinneil Bay. At the dock is a Secret Service agent. And I said, I'm a journalist with the Associated Press. And he points up to the bar an open bar on the second floor right above us. And he said, go up there. The vice president will be there in a few minutes. So I go up, and there's all these journalists that had been traveling with him. And I take a table because I don't know any of these guys. And I take a table by myself. And he comes in with his wife, and they take a walk around, and he says goodbye to every one of the journalists. Very nice guy. And then he gets to my table and looks at me kind of strange. He says, I don't know you. I haven't seen you at all. Who are you? I said, sir, I'm with the Associated Press. I'm from San Juan, and I'm here to get a picture of you with some palm trees. And he said, really? And I said, yes. And he said, okay, on the way back to the bungalow, where all the journalists are going to follow me, I'll go and take a walk on the beach. You think that'll work? And I said, yes, sir, that'll be perfect. And so on the way back, we got to the beach near his bungalow, and he took off his shoes. They both took off their shoes, and they went for a walk down the beach as the photographers, there were other photographers there, started taking pictures. And I flew back, and this picture made the front page of the New York Times.
Cool, cool. Wow, nice.
Oh, this is
an interesting one, yeah.
This is one of my favorite pictures that never got published. Well, it got published, but not by my newspaper until 20 years later. But what happened was, I'm on my honeymoon. Okay, we flew to San Juan to Bogota, and on the way over, I stopped in the plane stopped at Santa Marta, and I asked the stewardess, "Can we get off here? Like a train. Can we get off and get on later?" And they said, "Sure." So we got off in Santa Marta. We rented a car, my wife and I, and we did a little tour of Santa Marta, beautiful beach area in Colombia. And then we drove to Cartagena. And as we're driving into Cartagena, I see a plume of smoke going up over the city. And we're on a road. I guess it's the only road in from Santa Marta. And we get to this, it drives us right to the smoke. And I look out, I see two buses. If you look real closely underneath the flame is a bus.
Yeah, there's a bus there. Here.
Up against a church. There's a church. And there was a little fire going on, but there was a couple of guys on the bus on the right throwing off the suitcases and the chickens and everything else that was up there. And I picked up a black and white camera. I had a color camera, but I picked up a black and white camera. It had the 80 to 200 on it. And I pointed it, I took a couple of frames, and all of a sudden, a very static picture, not much happening. And then boom, the gas tank exploded, and I happened to capture that frame. So I continue on to Cartagena. We spend the night. I fly into Bogota the next morning. I go into the offices of the AP, and there's nobody there. It was noon, and everybody was out to lunch. But across the way was the publishing house of El Tiempo, the largest newspaper AP was in the El Tiempo building, as they normally do. And I took it over there, and the secretary called the managing editor, and he came out and he says, "Well, what do you got?" And I said, "Well, I've got this accident that happened in Cartagena yesterday." And, "Oh yeah, I heard about it." And he says, "You have it in color." And I was, "What?" Because no newspaper was printing color in those days, but in Colombia, in South America, they were using color. But he ran it on the front page, and then he gave me a free dinner at the top of the Tamanaco Hilton with wine and everything for me and my wife. And I didn't accept any payment. I just took the dinner. It was very, very nice. Cool. And I went back to the paper, and it was 2 weeks later, so I never gave it to them. But eventually it got published in they did a story about me, and this was one of the pictures that I used to show that had never been published in Puerto Rico.
Very nice story. I know you're watching San Toma.
Yeah, well, remember I told you that the airport in St. Thomas was a Black Star airport. It was named by the Pilots Association because it had a very short runway. I think it was only 4,000 feet. There was only one jet allowed to land there. That was the 727. And this plane came in hang on, I'm looking for my notes. This plane came in from New York, and it killed 37 people on landing because it came in too hot and the runway wasn't long enough. The first plane crash that you saw went about 250 yards to the right. This one went about 100 yards to the left of the runway. And it ended up at the Shell station with its nose right up against the palm tree. So New York was happy when they saw the palm tree, but I'm only kidding. But these pictures went worldwide. But it also caused the airplane crash caused a huge change. They built the runway another 4,000 feet out into the ocean, so that they were delisted.
They enlarged it.
Yeah, they enlarged it and made it safer. I've flown in there many times since.
Wow, this is, I mean, it looks horrible.
I hate to do this, but I wanted to ask you a question about the picture on the left, if I can. How did you take that picture? Were you flying over?
I had a drone. No, I'm only kidding. This one, since I heard that the airport was closed, I went down and I got a helicopter. Carrasquillo was our helicopter pilot at the Isla Grande airport. So I flew in, we did some pictures. I think I landed and I got other pictures of them taking the bodies out. You can see them, they're bringing bodies out on that picture. And I got back in the helicopter and I flew back to San Juan. So it was all done with a helicopter. It's a 50-mile ride or 60 miles to St. Thomas from San Juan. So
it's pretty close.
It's the best platform you can have. I've done
the drone of the time, right? That was the drone of the time.
And by the way, this pilot was later killed. His son married my sister-in-law.
Really?
Many years later. But he was killed training the Nicaraguan army on how to fly helicopters. I met him in Puerto Rico when he was training the Puerto Rican Police Department on their first helicopters. I'll show you. Well, I don't have the DuPont Fire pictures here, but there's a DuPont Fire helicopter pilot that I use, and he was very famous for lifting people off the roof. He also died, but that's another story. Go ahead. It's very dangerous to be in a helicopter.
Oh yeah. Tell me about it.
Ismaelito, one of our photographers, was in a helicopter covering an offshore race, and with the go fast boats. What do you call them? These super speedboats.
Yeah.
What do they call them? I can't remember the name. But
me neither.
but anyway, he was covering it, and their transmission broke, and their helicopter went in the water, and it turned upside down. And Ismaelito's a big guy, and he couldn't get his seatbelt undone. He's underwater, and thank God, because it was a race, they had a chase helicopter that was following the boats in case one of the boats with rescue divers on board. One of the rescue divers reached in to Ismaelito, got him out of the harness, and saved his life. So yes, helicopters are dangerous.
Yeah,
but I love them.
Yeah, Ismael is he was a photographer for Nodia too. He was a senior photographer. He passed. Unfortunately, he passed a couple of years ago, and yeah, we really love him, and very nice guy. Yeah,
sweetheart.
So here we are with your famous Walentas sequence, Gary.
Yeah, we have a few pictures here. We have a few pictures that this story is pretty good. I was at the circus. The Pan Am Circus was in town, and we always did feature pictures for the first 8 years. My first assignment for the newspaper in 1970 was the circus. and they were teaching me how to be a photographer. Guayo was the Cuban photographer that was teaching me, and he took me to the circus. So I went to the circus on my own in 1978, and I was taking pictures. And Luis Figueroa, TV personality in Puerto Rico, was a friend of mine, and he was the ringmaster. And he walked up to me after the circus was over. I usually don't stay very long. I usually get in and get out, but I stayed the whole circus. And he said, listen, Carl Walenda would like to speak to you. And I said, who? And he said, Carl Walenda, the tightrope guy. And I said, oh, okay. So he takes me back to the dressing room, and he's in the dressing room talking to another gentleman. And I wait for them to stop. And when he leaves, Carl introduces himself to me, and he said that he would like me to be there tomorrow at the hotel, the San Jeronimo Hilton, and the Flamboyant. And he said that he's going to walk between the two hotels, and he wanted to make sure that my newspaper, we were one of the biggest papers on the island at the time, and he wanted to make sure that we were there so he could fill, as he said, put more seats, more people in the seats at the circus. He was trying to do a publicity stunt. So I said, well, I happen to live very close by, and I will definitely be there. So I called him up, my city editor, and I told him what was going on. I said, I won't be in today. I'm going to be covering the Walenda walk. He said, great, go do it. And I went and I took my son, who was, he's 43 now or 44. He's on here somewhere. But I took my son, who was about a year old at the time, and maybe less. And I took my wife, and we went to the beach next to the hotel, and I'm standing there in my bathing suit. I had parked my car under the hotel in the parking lot with my cameras in it. And I look up, as we're driving in to the parking lot, we could see Walenda there with the guide wires, teaching people how to hold those wires so that they could, there wouldn't be any sway in the line. So I went to the beach, and I'm sitting there, and all of a sudden I look up, and he's on the wire, and I'm on the beach, and I'm going, oh my goodness, I missed this. So I run like a bandit. I get to the car, open the car, grab my cameras, load the film, run up to the elevator, get into the top floor, had to climb up onto the roof. And as I get there, I look out, and there's no Walenda. And I'm really freaked out. I said, what happened? And his wife was standing there, and his granddaughter was there, and they turned to me and they said, oh, he just was testing the wire. He's going to start soon. So I calmed down. I put a camera up on the chimney because I planned my picture to be a wide angle shot showing the people down below as he got close to me. And, and that was pretty important at the time. I didn't think about it. But as he came across, I had a 300 millimeter lens, and I'm shooting him walking, and all of a sudden his pole starts going back and forth, waving. Now the wire seemed pretty steady, but the pole was not. Well, if you look at this picture really close, you can see that he's grimacing, and he's grimacing his face. About a week after these pictures were published, a cardiologist friend of mine called me up. He said, Gary, you know those pictures you took of Walenda? And I said, yes, of course. And he said, well, that one picture where he has the pole up and down, he's grimacing, and that's the face of a man having a heart attack. So that explained everything, because everybody didn't know why he fell. He tried to sit down. By the way, there were two other photographers, Pipo Grajales, remember the guy from the first story, from the San Juan Star? He was standing next to me, and another photographer from El Mundo was there, I think. But he sat down and he spun. As soon as he sat down, he could not hold on. He spun and he fell. And my finger froze on the trigger of my motor drive. I had a Nikon F motor, or maybe it was an F2 by then. And my finger froze on the button, and I took 36 pictures of him falling. Wow. And the last picture is the one on the right. And I don't actually have to see him hit the ground, because there's a taxi driver, right under car. taxi car right under where he is, where these girls are running, these tourists are running away. And he hit the taxi in front, and there's a ledge from the casino out, and you can't see that taxi from where we were on the roof. So I heard it. So I ran downstairs like a madman, and I got down there with the 300mm lens. Because I had left the wide angle.
The wide angle. Oh wow!
Up on the roof. I took a quick picture with the 300, whatever I could, with the people and actually a young lady.
It was too close. You was too close for the 300.
I ran upstairs and got the and for some reason you didn't put the picture in here of the hands showing the body on the ground. I understand why it's a little gruesome. It shows a dead body, but that was a very important picture. A lot of newspapers, by the way, did not print these pictures. A lot of newspapers printed the picture of the wife. I took a picture of the wife crying on the ground after he fell, and a picture of the granddaughter and one of the other flying Wolendas. What I found out later on, remember the guy that was talking to Wolenda? Well, I met him by coincidence a month later at a dinner party at a friend's house, and we're sitting next to each other. Everybody said, well, he took the pictures. And then this guy said, well, I was in the tent with him the night before. And I said, oh, you're the guy. He says, yeah, well, I worked in the circus. And he told me the story that Carl was complaining of heart pain, of chest pains. So he was already
confirmed. Yeah.
That confirmed to me that he died.
He had a heart attack. Yeah.
Wow. And we published that story about 2 weeks later. What the doctor said.
Wow. The super tanker.
Oh yeah, this was a good one. Hang on, I gotta get the names correct. This was
I wanted to let everybody know that. I'm sorry if I misspell your name, Giuliano. Giuliano.
Giuliano.
Yeah.
Giuliano. He shared a link on the
in the chat
about the Wolenda.
It was a cover of New York Times. Did you get World Press Photo for this photo, Gary?
I won the King of Spain award.
King of Spain.
Okay. Which is the Spanish Pulitzer. And it was that's a good story. Carlos called me up. I was supposed to receive it from the governor, Romero Barceló, in the Casa de España. And Carlos calls me up, Gary, where are you? We're all here waiting for you. And I said, really? I had the wrong hour. And I kept the governor waiting. And when I got there, I said, well, he's kept me waiting many, many times. Anyway. Many years later, the king arrived in Puerto Rico, and he was doing a tour with Rafael Hernandez Colon. And I was a pool photographer at the University of Puerto Rico. I was in the museum, and I was way far away from where they came in. They walked in, they went through some cases, and all of a sudden, somebody's pushing me. And usually they're pushing me back because I'm always trying to get closer, but this one, they're pushing me closer to the king. And finally, I get right up to the king. It was the press secretary for Rafael Hernandez Colon. And he wanted to introduce me to the king because I had won the King of Spain award. So that was kind of cool.
Yeah.
Okay, this picture. Let me see. This picture happened off the coast of Trinidad. It was
Gary, wait a second before you keep going with that. Let me show the audience that picture that you're just talking about. Give me 1 sec here. I think I have to stop sharing for a second. Let me share again. I don't know.
Yeah, there it is.
Yeah.
Well, I was on the far wall, furthest away, and they kept pushing me forward. I was never pushed forward before. I've always been back, you know.
Yes, Gary.
It was kind
That's
of.
the King of Spain. Yeah.
Juan Carlos Dubon.
Yeah.
He resigned.
He resigned.
Yes, his son is now the king.
Oh. Okay, so let me share again here the presentation. Okay, I think that.
Super
Alright.
tanker. Okay.
Super tanker, yeah.
We got the call that two super tankers had crashed after leaving Venezuela, and they were going through the strait between Tobago and Trinidad, and they collided at night, and they caught on fire. So I chartered a plane, and we flew in, and it took about 5 hours from Puerto Rico to Trinidad. We got in late in the evening, or in the afternoon, and I took a couple of pictures, and I went back to we flew into Trinidad, and I went to the Trinidad telephone company, and they had a photo transmitter there, and I transmitted a couple of pictures. The next morning, I got up, and I decided to go back out and see what I could get. So we went out, and we got this picture where it shows the Empress, the Atlantic Empress, which had 250,000 gallons of oil on board. It had collided with another ship that had 275,000 gallons of water, creating the largest potential oil disaster in the world. This ship was being towed, and it kept for 10 days burning. The other ship was towed in, and they offloaded most of the oil onto other ships. But this ship was being towed and was rocked by several explosions. And 10 days later, it sank with all its cargo. And I think 22 people were killed in the initial crash.
Wow.
When we left this picture, we were flying away, and the pilot turned to me and says, "We can't leave." I said, "What's going on?" He says, "Well, we have an emergency situation. We have to do search and rescue. Keep your eyes out for a helicopter." Apparently, the government of Trinidad had sent out a helicopter to do an inspection of the accident, and it went missing. So they didn't know what was going on, and we flew around for about an hour. And then finally, the pilot heard that the helicopter passengers were safe, and they had been rescued by another boat, I think one of the tugboats. And we flew to Tobago and landed in Tobago to get fuel to fly back into San Juan. And when I got to Tobago, there's nobody there but a single photographer with 3 Nikons on his shoulder, Jose Azel from the Miami Herald. And I said, "What are you doing?" And he said, "Well, I didn't know Jose, but we became friends after this." And he says, "Well, I've been sent down here to get pictures of the crash." And I said, "Well, where's your airplane?" He says, "I don't have one." And then he says, "Do you think we can go out with yours?" I said, "We're on our way back." I said, "Let me see what the pilot says." And the pilot said, "Yeah, we could do it." So we went out and we took some pictures, and he flew back with me to San Juan, took a commercial flight, but his newspaper ran my picture because it got there before he did.
Mm-hmm. Okay, cool. So let's keep going.
How are we doing on time?
We are pretty good. Yeah.
Okay.
I think
This is just pretty much easy world tennis photographs. Jimmy Connors on the left, and Ilie Nastase. I actually have a picture of Jimmy Connors doing the exact same finger to the exact same judge. They both did not like this judge. This was at the Saramar Hotel in 1979. Nothing. There's not too much of it. Well, all the journalists got in the elevator. We got stuck in the elevator, putting too many people in the elevator. That's about it for the backstory.
It's a great action shot of Jimmy Connors playing, actually. Yeah.
They're hard to do. They're hard to do. Tennis is hard.
Yeah.
Here's Angel Espada, Cholo, when he fought Jose Pepino Cuevas in 1976. It was a 2-round fight, and Jose Cuevas took the title away with this one punch where he broke the jaw. You can see the jaw breaking in the punch.
Mm-hmm.
And the fight ended right after this, and he fought him 2 more times and still lost. On the right is a more recent photograph that I took for EFE, the Spanish news agency in Las Vegas, of Manny Pacquiao, who was going to fight Juan Manuel Marquez. And this was at the weigh-in, and he just puffed up. I just like it as a nice picture.
Yeah, it is. It is.
I did a lot of boxing over my career because we had so many title fights out of Puerto Rico, and Puerto Rico has the best boxing fans in the world, and they loved our newspaper because my newspaper covered it like no other newspaper in the world. Don King and his public relations people honored us with high praise because of the way we covered. Even the Las Vegas Review-Journal would only publish one picture of a major title fight. And we would go in and do a week worth of training and then have 2 or 3 pages of pictures of the fight, sometimes front page and back page, depending on who was fighting and who won and who lost.
Yeah. And I am not a witness. I work with the paper and
you are
I participate and I remember I did a lot of boxing too when I was with the Novodia. Yeah.
We were considered the best boxing newspaper in the world by everybody who knew boxing.
Yeah. All right.
Oh, this is a very strange story. I got a call from AP, told me I had to go to Montserrat, a volcano island in the Caribbean, east of St. Thomas, about 400 miles east of Puerto Rico, and take pictures of the Beatles reunion. Quote, this was 1 year after John Lennon had been killed, and supposedly they had been informed, the AP had been informed, that Ringo and George Harrison and Paul were on Montserrat at George Martin's Air Studios and recording their first album with the 3 of them. So this was a big story worldwide. And I flew in, but before I flew in, I called up Air Studios. I got the manager and I told him that I was with the AP and that I would be coming over to take pictures. And he said, fine, and this is okay. And we hung up, and I went in with AP sent a good friend of mine, Doug Jennings, a photographer from Miami, and they sent him in with me. And we flew in on a charter plane. And we got there and we took a taxi to our hotel, and we got the taxi driver to rent me a car because there was no Hertz at the airport. And I needed a car for the couple days that I thought we sent the airplane home. We drove out to the Air Studios. We come onto this beautiful house, beautiful home. And we drive into the driveway, and the manager comes screaming out, and he starts screaming at her, what are you doing here? You can't, it's private property, you can't be here, blah, blah, blah. I said, well, we spoke. And then finally Doug started talking to him and finding out the information. And as that happened, Linda and the little boy in the picture on the left, she drove in the Mini Cooper. And the little boy was naked, and he got out and he took a whiz, and I took a picture of him taking a whiz from behind. And they went in, and we got kicked off. And as we left, the reporter told me that there was no Beatles reunion. It was just Paul. The other 2 were elsewhere recording their parts of the album, and they were going to merge them later in the studio. So I called up AP in New York and I told them what was going on, and they said, okay, come on home. So I transmitted the one picture of the little boy taking a whiz, and we left. Well, we didn't leave. We went to the hotel, and I got up the next morning and I just didn't feel good about only one little picture, and Paul was on the island somewhere. So I went back to the house, but I didn't go in because I knew we weren't welcome. I saw a little garage on the outside. I said, yeah, hey, Mom, you know where Paul McCartney is? He says, oh, Mom, Paul, he only records in there. He lives, and he's told me he lived in a plantation home about 10 miles from where we were. And he told me what it looked like, and it was on the same road. So I got on this mountain road. We were on a volcano, and we were driving on this mountain road, and I get to this beautiful plantation home, and there's Linda and the kids out at the pool. And I get out of the car. I have a 300, and I start taking pictures of them. And out comes Paul, and he just woke up. He yawns, he stretches and yawns, sits down, gives her a kiss. And meanwhile, I'm creeping closer and closer to the pool from the road. I'm behind trees so they don't see me. And then I said, well, let me go. After they went in, I said, let me go get Doug and tell him what I got. So I went back and got Doug. We went back to the same spot on the road. And as we were there, out comes Paul by himself, lights up a joint, sits at the pool, smokes the joint, plays with a little toy boat. You can just barely see it on the left-hand corner of the bottom left-hand corner, a little toy sailboat from his son. And then he goes in the house, and the reporter told me that he was probably going to be recording at about 1 o'clock, and it was about 12 o'clock now. So I parked the car in front of the exit of the house, and I'm standing there, and I can see Paul coming with his guitar and the kids, and they get in the car, and then they come out, and he comes out, and they're in a Mini Cooper. This is an Island edition, has no doors, has a little canvas top. So I take some pictures as he drives out, and I boom, 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 and he saw me. So I make a U-turn, and I almost crashed into a dump truck because I was on the wrong side of the road. I was driving on the wrong side of the road, trying to follow him. But I pulled over, and I followed him. I got around. We were right behind him, and he came around the mountain in the opposite direction. While he was in the curve, he made a U-turn. And I turned to Doug and I said, boy, this guy must have taken some defensive driving class because he made a hell of a move there. And I took a picture while driving with my 85 of him giving me the thumbs up as he drove by going the other way. So I made a U-turn, and I came back around, and I lost him. I didn't see him when I went. So we pulled over to the side of the road. We started talking. Doug was in the back seat. I'm in the front seat driving. And we're going, well, what do we do? You know, I know we got enough pictures. We got a story now, blah, blah, blah. And all of a sudden, Paul comes out of a driveway he had hidden into, and he sees us as he's going back towards us. He sees us sitting on the side of the road. He looks over the mirror of the Mini Cooper, and he steers the bumper of the car right into our door and sticks his head in the window. And that's the picture you see with my 85. He's a little bit out of focus. Linda's in focus, but because it was as close as I could focus with that 85, and I took a couple of pictures. Doug was taking pictures of the actual crash. He had a wide angle, and you could see Paul looking over the window, over the mirror, aiming at us. But he was screaming and yelling at me, and I'm in shock because he's my superstar. He's my hero. I've always loved this man, and here he is yelling at me. Here he is yelling at me, and I'm going, oh my God! And I bet you he doesn't even know I have those other pictures of him at the pool, and I'm going, oh my God, what am I going to do? And finally, I said, so who's going to pay for the damage to my rental car? And he goes, right. He gives me a victory sign. At least that's what I thought it was. And I turned to Doug and I said, why did he give us the victory sign and go off like that? He said, that wasn't the victory sign. That means this. That means that in England, that is the middle finger. So,
wow.
Yeah. So we get back.
Story.
Well, it gets a little better. We get back on the road, and the dump truck had caused a train of cars to form behind it because we were on a mountain, on a volcano. And there were about 20 cars, and Paul's in the middle. By the time we caught up to it, we were at the end, and number 21, and Paul pulls over to the side. He flags me down. I pull up, and I go, is everybody okay from the accident? I'm being a little facetious. He says, yeah, man, I just want to talk to you. You know, I'm sorry about what happened. And I back up. He gets out of the car, gets up to my window. He looks at me, and he goes, I thought he was going to punch me, but Doug jumped out of the back seat, got it face to face. He ended up giving us an interview on the side of the road. His security team drives by, and I'm not taking any pictures. Why, I don't know, but I'm not taking any. I'm out of the car without a camera, and Doug's doing the interview, and the security teams drive by. Everything okay, Paul? Yes. He says, it's okay. He waves them on. And then he gets in the car. We go back. I transmit the pictures, and I told Doug, we better leave tomorrow because those security guys are going to come looking for us when they see the pictures that I have of the pool. And I didn't transmit the picture of him actually smoking the joint. I transmitted the picture of him sitting at the pool side. Hello? Did I hear somebody? Anyway, to shorten this out a little bit, we charter a plane. We get to the airport. There's one solid plane on, brand new copy of the twin engine Beechcraft that I had chartered in. Was sitting there. I found the pilot. He lived over the airport. $800 to take us to San Juan. He flies us to San Juan. We get to the bank. I write a check on a bank, Banco Popular, my bank account. Give him $800. He cashes it, and he gets in the plane, takes off, and kills himself.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. That's why I had to put that in. Oh, I forgot to say one thing. When I took the rental car back, I told the taxi driver, he said, what happened, man? I said, well, I had a little run-in with a Mini Cooper. And he says, it's a green Mini Cooper. And he said, a green Mini Cooper? Was Paul McCartney driving the Paul? I said, yeah, how'd you know that? He says, well, I rented Paul the Mini Cooper. So very small island.
Yeah, let's keep going. Good story.
Not many photographers can say they had a hit and run with Paul McCartney.
Right.
Not many people, I'm sure.
Not many people, right.
Yes. Hurricane Hugo came to Puerto Rico and destroyed Culebra, Vieques, Fajardo. This picture here on the left, it became the iconic picture of the hurricane. My boss loved it because it showed the action of the palm trees blowing. It was taken from my window in Condado. We were only experiencing 90-mile-an-hour winds, whereas on the east coast of Puerto Rico, they were going to 150-mile-an-hour winds. So as soon as I took this picture, I called the pilot who was in town. I had made a reservation with him. He was the pilot who had lifted the people off the DuPont fire. I called him. He had brought his helicopter in from St. Thomas because he was worried about damage to his helicopter, and he parked it in Isla Grande. And we got up in the air about 3 hours after the hurricane had left, and the 45-mile-an-hour winds were going up. And we flew over to the East Coast. And this picture showed the first one on the right is the El Conquistador Hotel. And if you look real close, you'll see a bunch of tourists out there on the sun deck, taking in sun. A few hours after the hurricane. Yep. Mm-hmm. A few hours after the hurricane destroyed the hotel. I thought that was kind of cool. And then you have Vieques, Culebra on the left and Culebra on the right, on the bottom. Now, Culebra was a hurricane hole. All the boats from St. Thomas, St. John, St. Croix, Puerto Rico would go into Culebra and put their boats because it's surrounded by mountains. And that didn't work. All the boats went down. Everything was sunk. Mm-hmm. Everything was sunk. I went back there several days in a row. I had the helicopter for 3 days, and I have people looting in St. Croix. I think that's the next slide. Can you?
This one?
Yes. This was the second day. I flew into St. Croix with our pilot, and a CBS crew had come in, and we shared the helicopter with them. And as we're flying over St. Croix, the pilot gets a call from one of his clients in St. Croix, the Carambola Hotel, and they needed to evacuate some people to the hospital. They had been injured in the hurricane. St. Croix was hammered. it was destroyed. I mean, it was like probably Puerto Rico was after Hurricane Maria. But I told the CBS crew they had to get out because I knew where the helicopter, I knew where Carambola was. The pilot did too, but he didn't know where the hospital was. And I lived in St. Croix as a kid, so I knew where the hospital was. It was right next to this Sunny Isle shopping center in the middle of the island. And as we lifted off from all these people were looting there's a supermarket there, there's a Pueblo, there's a Grand Union. It's a strip mall, and we hovered over them as they were just piling in the cars. And then I flew back. I had looting in downtown in Christiansted. I had looting. Marshals with me. I even got pictures of National Guard looting, and I have pictures of the police department looting the Coca-Cola plant. As we left, I got a ride with two marshals in their vehicle from the airport to town.
Crazy.
And we were passed by all these police cars, and we followed them to the Coca-Cola because there were 20 cars. There aren't 20 police cars in St. Croix, but we followed them and they had their guns drawn out, and they were pointing in the direction of the factory. And other cops were inside carrying out cases of water and Coca-Cola because they knew there was going to be a shortage. So, but the district attorney took all my pictures and they pressed charges against the National Guard and the police.
Oh, really?
But they weren't found guilty.
Yeah, I bet.
You can move on.
Kentucky Derby.
Yeah, this was pretty good. We always covered our horses, Puerto Rican horses. And in this case, Mr. Frisky is the horse dead center with the blue hat. And I'm at the end of the track at the Kentucky Derby, and I'm shooting with a long lens. And this is a race where it starts at the beginning of the final turn, and they come around past the finish line, and they go around and do it again. Well, this is when they pass the finish line for the first time. And I'm taking these pictures, and I'm going, oh, Mr. Frisky's in front. We're going to have a nice picture here. So he comes around, they come around, and there's another jockey who's winning by a lot. And Mr. Frisky never made it. He broke down on the backstretch, and I never saw him. So,
well, but it's a great shot. It's a great shot.
Yeah, it's a good picture. We were shooting color by then.
Mm-hmm.
Shortly thereafter, we were doing digital. Okay, this is.
We have to talk about that. So let's speed it up a little bit. We're running short now.
Running short time. Okay.
Well, not that much, but yeah, I think we can make it.
Okay. All right. This is in Haiti, and in 1991 there were two coup attempts. This is the first one. In 1991, a priest had been elected president, and the Tonton Macoutes, the former boogeymen of the Papadopoulos, the one we saw in the very first pictures, they tried to throw the president out of power. I got a call in San Juan that there had been a coup. And I called up AP and I rented an airplane. I got some other journalists with me, and we flew in and we got over the airport, and they said, you can't land. The airport is closed. And I said, listen, don't pay attention. In this case, the pilot told me the airport was closed. He said he couldn't reach anybody on the radio. So I said, land the plane. So we landed the plane. AP sent out a microbus, a Volkswagen, and we all piled in. We got to the end of the airport road going to Port-au-Prince, and out there was a whole bunch of people, maybe 150 people in the middle of the road right there at the entrance to the airport. And we got out of the car, and I could hear gunfire coming from a compound on the corner of this intersection. So I walked into this intersection, and there were people being shot and killed and stoned and hit with, and it turns out that this was the compound of the coup leader. The coup leader was not successful. This coup did not go. The military came in and overpowered the coup leaders. And our photographer got a picture of them all lined up in the palace, Danielle Morel. He did, excellent work that day. And I went to the Holiday Inn, and we had a special AP room with 2 telephone lines underneath the carpet that would give me a direct line to New York. So that's how we moved these pictures out. And it was kind of gruesome, but I was a little worried that we were going to be hurt but everybody was warm. They were showing us little pictures of family members that had been hurt or killed by these coup leaders. So they just wanted to make sure that the word got out that these guys were not liked in Haiti.
Wow.
Next. Michael Jackson, easy. Got the assignment to do the Grammys and to do the Michael Jackson reunion. And we flew up to New York with a reporter, and she immediately got sick. As soon as we got the credentials for the Grammys, she got sick. I had to take her to the hospital. And so I went to the Grammys by myself, didn't get much. It was very closed. It was very, very crowded with lots of photographers. So I got some red carpet stuff, and that's about it. Then I went to the concert, and we're up in the high up, and there's about 300 photographers up there and cameramen, and they were letting the media in 2 sections. And I was in the second section because I was from Puerto Rico, and we didn't count. So we ended up waiting we heard the music start. We couldn't see anything, but we could hear the music, the concert starting, and about 30 minutes goes by. And the first group has not come back. They were only supposed to get 2 songs. And then come back and get us, and we were going to get 2 songs. So all of a sudden, the first group comes back, and they said security wouldn't let them in.
Oh, wow.
And I said, what do you mean? I flew all this way up, and there was a couple of New York photographers. AP had a photographer, friend of mine was there. And so we all started talking, let's go. And we all went down. And we crashed through. In front of the stage, they had this open area that they had saved for the journalists. So we just went right through. They're going, you can't come in, you can't come in. We just went right through them. There was no way they were going to stop 200 people. No way. Wow. So we got a bunch of pictures, and this was the first time that I was shooting color and black and white. I must have shot like 30 rolls of film in 3 songs. They finally kicked us out after 3 songs.
Great shots, great shots. Yeah.
This was the FIBA championship to see who was going to go to China for the Olympics. The United States was playing Canada in the picture on the left, Amadi Stoudemire. This was taken with a remote camera from behind the glass. And the picture on the right is Kobe Bryant doing a layup. It's actually a practice layup, but I didn't care. It was a nice picture. And before the game started, I got the pleasure of photographing everybody, doing the headshots for TV because I was the official photographer for FIBA. Because FIBA is based in Puerto Rico. And so they sent up their whole crew from Puerto Rico. And I was in Tucson, Arizona at the time. And Chu Garcia, our editor, was going to do a special section for the people in the stadium at the Thomas and Mack Stadium. And he asked me to come up and be the official photographer. So I did that. I covered every game, and it was quite tiring, but it was a lot of fun. Took the wife. I got to meet a lot of crazy people, important people. It was fun. It was a lot of fun.
This is another.
This picture here was an exclusive picture. It's taken at 10:15 at night. We had covered this track and field meet in the afternoon. I had been there, and we were shooting color. So the editors asked me to come back early so we would have enough time to do the color separations for the newspaper. We did 2 pages, I think it was. On the way out, the sports editor told me, get a picture of Javier Sotomayor. He's going to jump. He's pretty important. Get a picture of him. But he wasn't jumping till later on that evening. So I got a picture of him walking in with his sneakers and went to the newspaper, developed my pictures, went out drinking and playing darts at my favorite bar in Ocean Park, Dunbar's. And I got a call. And it was Chu Garcia telling me that, Gringo, you have to run. And I said, what's going on? He says, he's jumping for a world record. He's jumping to jump 8 feet I didn't know what he was talking about, but it slowly caught on, and I ran out of jumped in my car and drove like a madman down the Baldioto de Castro to Sixto Escobar Stadium. I drove right up to the front gate, and it was closed. It was about 9:45 or maybe 10 minutes to 10. No, it was 5 minutes to 10. And they let me in. I got inside, and I'm loading my camera with I think I had a 300 millimeter or a 400 millimeter lens. Not a lot of light there, but I'm putting in fast color film. And as I'm running in, he's running across the track, and he's making a jump. And I'm still loading, and I'm running and breathing fast. And I stop, and I put it on the monopod, and I did boom, 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 boom. And I got a couple pictures as he missed.
Wow,
So,
he broke the record.
No, he missed. He dropped, the pole fell. So I turned to the head judge, who was a friend of mine, and I said, Armando, what happened there? What just happened? He said, oh, that was the second jump. He has one more attempt. I said, oh, okay. So I calmed down a little bit. And then something happened, what I call a magic moment. It was, and Hiram used it as the lead because he wasn't there, and he interviewed me. And on the side, Javier was taking his arms like this before moving, just doing this, and then the Cuban team started clapping in unison to his rhythm. And then all of a sudden, there was a big sign on the billboard saying, "Please be quiet. He's jumping for a world record 8 feet or 2.44 millimeters." And it was in Spanish. And all of a sudden, the crowd started clapping to the rhythm of the Cuban team and his arms. And then he took off. And when he took off, he cleared that baby by about 2 inches. And then the whole Cuban team rushed under and over and around the bar and swarmed him on the left. And I heard Armando go, "Don't knock the bar down." He was yelling at the Cuban team in Spanish, not to knock the bar down. I said, "Why not? What happens?" He says, "Well, if they knock the bar down, the record doesn't count." So they didn't knock the bar down. They remeasured it, and it was 8 feet. And the world record went in. 5 years later, he broke it by 1/4 of an inch, but no man has ever jumped over 8 feet.
Wow.
But Javier Sotomayor. He came to the paper, and I gave him 3 sets of pictures. He took one back for Fidel, one back for himself, and one back for his federation.
Oh, wow. Nice. Let's keep going, Gary.
Oh. This is Hurricane David. Dominican Republic, another phone call, and from AP, and I chartered a plane. We heard that a church had gone down in San Cristobal in the Dominican Republic, and that there were several dead, many dead. I heard up to 50 at the time. This is like, so we chartered a plane. I had some other journalists with me. Again, we like to share the cost, and we get over the airport, and this time, the general in charge of the airport gets on when he finds out we're journalists, he gets on the radio with a pilot, and he says, "We can't land." And I told the pilot to tell him that we are the international foreign journalists, and that if he wants any aid to come and help his country out, that he should let us land, get the story out, and this will bring lots of aid. Sure enough, we were allowed to land. We got in the cab, we rented a car, and we drove over to Santo Domingo. We made some pictures. There was a lot of damage, but I really wanted to get up to this church. And we got out of the car, and I started walking near the church, and I saw this young lady with her baby and the bandage and the destruction of the church behind her. And I took a couple of pictures, but the other journalists were walking behind me, maybe 100 yards, taking other pictures. And so I said, "Ma'am, where do you live?" And she pointed to a house right around, and I took her in the house, and that's where I got the picture on the right of her father and her mother and some other her sisters. I don't know, other family members were inside there. But basically, I was trying to get her out of the line of fire. I did not want the other photographers to get this picture.
That's an exclusive.
Yes.
So that's her family.
Yeah. That's her family, correct.
Wow.
I had several pictures in the house.
Okay.
All right.
So this is part of your when you was living in Arizona.
Correct. I
Actually,
spent 20.
this is-
I spent 20 years in Arizona. When I first arrived, I had retired at 50, and I was working. I had bought a restaurant for my wife, and we were working in the restaurant. And FA called me and said they needed photographers in the Southwest, and I said, oh, "Great, I'm willing to do the work, since I speak Spanish a little bit, and I could do the work." So I found out after that phone call that 600 people had died crossing into the Arizona desert trying to get in that year in 2000 or 2000, it was 2001. And I was in shock. I could not believe that so many people were dying in the desert, crossing over, trying to get into the United States. So this became my story for the next 20 years. This particular picture almost killed me, literally almost killed me. It looks like a very easy picture, but I went out to take pictures with Borstar, a new kind of Border Patrol agent who was medically trained to be an emergency medical technician. So to help rescue these people that were dying. They were coming across people dying of sunstroke, of lack of water. Just the heat was right in this picture. It's 116 degrees. So we didn't get many pictures of the 4-star agent. It was so hot. But on the way back, he got a radio call, and he said that a helicopter was surrounding a bunch of mules. He calls these guys mules. They had marijuana packs on the back, and they were carrying marijuana into. He said, "You want to get those?" I said, "Well, it's better than what we got." So we went back, and we were up on the very top of that hill up there. And we could see the helicopter, could see the guys running around chasing, and the other Border Patrol agents had arrived, and we parked next to them. And he says, "You want to go down?" And I said, "Yeah, let's go down. That's where the action is." So I left the car, but I left my hat. We had just eaten lunch, and I left my hat. I took 2 bottles of water, and I walked down into this heat. But I have an agreement with the border. I signed a contract with the Border Patrol. I will not take pictures of faces of the migrants. So I'm waiting while they take their information, they put them on the ground, I'm walking around in a circle, taking pictures, trying not to get faces. And then I know the picture I want is them walking out of the desert. So I'm waiting behind. And as they start walking out, I'm taking the pictures. And then all of a sudden they walk past me, and I see a bush on the right, and I crawl under the bush and pass out. I was going through heat exhaustion myself. Mm-hmm. And thank God I was traveling with a Borstar agent. He came back. "Gary, are you okay?" And I couldn't open my eyes. And he got another agent, and they carried me. They dragged me up, one under each shoulder. They dragged me up to the car. I vomited all of lunch, and then I was better by the time we got back to Tucson. But it was ever since then, the heat in Tucson. That's why I left Tucson, because it was too hot. It's every day in the summer, 116, 115. Can't take it. Can't take it. This is one of the pictures I've taken on the board at the fence in Nogales, which is the main crossing point for Arizona to Mexico, into Sonora. There's a Nogales, Mexico, and a Nogales, Arizona. Nogales, Mexico is 5 times the size of Nogales, Arizona. And they have a big wall and lots of border patrol. And back in the 07 and 06, they started sending in National Guard because the Minutemen were also patrolling, and they didn't want these unauthorized people patrolling the border. So they brought in National Guard as a training exercise for these guys. And the guy on the left saw me taking pictures of the National Guard, and he's watching them, and he waves over to me, and then he jumped back onto the Mexican side.
Interesting. And these are current stories, because this story of the U.S. border crisis is still there. So one of the last stories I did was
The cardinal from Boston came to town, and he went to the fence in Nogales, and they gave a set of masks for people on the other side and on this side, and they were giving communion through the fence.
Wow.
I have pictures of
Wow.
that, but anyway.
Yeah, I know we're missing a lot, Gary, but you know, it's already
About
9:30.
90% of the pictures.
Yeah, I know. Fortunately, the time, you know, is against us, and I knew it. But this is perfect. I think this is a perfect presentation. I believe this is the last slide. Well, this is the last slide.
Oh my goodness.
He will have Gary in these two stages of his
That's-
life.
That's my
Yeah.
first selfie. Before we did so, we never took pictures of ourselves ever. We never took pictures with
Yeah.
other people. You know, people.
Yeah.
I have one picture with me and Tito Trinidad, and that's it.
Yeah.
Picture on the right shows me on top of a truck at the border with the Minutemen.
So Gary, I want to thank you for this time to share with us. I want to thank you all the people that join us for this event.
No questions?
And if there's any question, we can take 5-10 minutes. If someone have any question, feel free. If you want to unmute your mic or you want to put it in the chat, feel free to do that. So.
Hey Gary, you didn't know you were going to be a trendsetter when you started taking selfies, did you?
No, I had no idea.
So, by the way, Gary is one of the first photographers to make a digital to become a digital photographer.
Definitely the first digital photo editor. I was the very
digital
first
photo editor. Yeah.
Correct.
So I'm also honored that I mean we walked through the analog through the digital. So we walked through that process of being an analog photographer to the digital. So first shooting film, then scanning before the digital cameras. And you can tell the first digital camera. Do you remember the Nikon and Kodak camera? I think it was a lot.
N90.
The N90. Actually, I have an N90.
It was called the AP 2400 or something like that. I don't know, but they sold it for like $30,000. It had
Yes.
640 by 480 resolution.
Yeah, I think it was like 2 mega or 1.5 megapixels, something like that.
We were dealing with tiny little files in those days.
Yeah.
We started before. Let me tell you how it started. I was in Washington D.C. doing a plebiscite in the Congress, and I went to the AP, and they took me over quickly to the first digital photo conference. I came back after seeing that, and I told Antonio Luis Ferre, the owner of the paper, that this was coming and that we could finally computerize the paper. And he looked at me and he said, do you have a computer? And I said, yes, I have a little Atari gaming computer. He said, okay, you're the guy. I said, no, I'm not the guy. I'm a photographer. I like being a photographer. I don't want to be in the office. And he said, no. How does he offered me an insane amount of money at the time. And I said, okay, I'm the guy. And I took it on, and I didn't know what I was doing, and I had to learn it. And then I had to teach it and pass it on. And eventually, 8 years later, I went to the son of Antonio Luis, Aldi, and I told him that it's done. Can I please go back to being a photographer? And he let me go out for 3 years being a photographer, keeping my incredibly high salary, which was not a good idea. I come to think of it, but anyway, it was fun. It was fun. It had to be done. It had to be done. It was the beginning of the end of the newspaper as we know it.
Did you know that at the time?
I did not. I actually took Aldi over to a conference on the internet before, and I told him, I said, listen, this is going to be, as we left, I said, he had just bought new presses for the Primera Hora newspaper that Giuliano worked at. And I told him, I said, those are the last presses your family will ever buy. They spent like $30 million on these color liners. And because everything is going to be on the internet. And he looked at me and he ran with it. And he literally ran with it. He has done a great job of digitizing the paper and making it available online. And we are still, I think, the '1 paper in Puerto Rico.
I remember the digital prepress department in the NODIA. There was Tony, Luis was there. It was a very impressive department. That was very well equipped.
I put it in the newsroom. We took it out of the back shop where we had always done pre-press, and we did it in the newsroom, and we fed, because we were editorial. So we put it in I put it in the editorial department, and we put it in a dark room. Everybody would come into the room and go, "What are you guys doing in the dark?" You know, because the monitors work better. Our monitors cost $5,000 each. I had 5 workstations to do all the pre-press, and it was a great learning experience. I had a lot of help. I brought in specialists to teach me what I needed to know. I went to a lot of digital photo conferences. Eventually, I was teaching it. So, it was a great experience. The very first hard Mac we bought was a Mac FX. I remember putting a Photoshop sharpened filter, and I went to lunch. It came back, and the filter was still going across. Still, and the hard drive that we were saving it, I bought 2 hard drives. They were 100 megabytes each. One was backup.
It's crazy.
Hey Gary, you're getting shout outs in the chat from Chris, somebody said, "Hello, that's my grandpa."
Hello, Christopher. I have my son and they're in North Carolina watching. So they haven't seen me in a couple of years.
Oh, wow.
Well, I mean, we do Zoom. No, we don't Zoom. We FaceTime.
FaceTime. Yeah.
Yes.
So, well, Gary, thank you again.
Thank you for inviting me. I appreciate the invite.
And I enjoy the whole process to get here and with you. I'm always learning. And let's see if we can do something else in the future.
It's been 51 years that I've been doing this, so I'm open. I'm not doing much here in Thailand.
And
if I could say something real quick, Gary.
Yeah, go ahead, Juliano.
So I had the honor of being a young photographer back about 25 years ago and working in El Nuevo Dia, and then working in Primera Hora, and having walking the hallways of the newspaper, and you would see these guys that were like the legends, Gary Williams, all these guys who would walk down. I think Jose Rodriguez is there. I think him in the chat.
Yeah.
So you would you would always look up to them like, oh my God, these are like the original gangsters of photojournalism in Puerto Rico. So you always look at them, and
that's only because of Carlos Castañeda. If it wasn't for Carlos, there would be no El Nuevo Dia. If it wasn't for Marisol Malaret, there would be no El Nuevo Dia.
Carlos also an amazing man, but I can tell you that one of the things that I learned from working with you guys was the hard work, because we would work so late that the newspaper was coming out. We would still be there 16 hours or 17 hours a day. So nowadays, I think people take things for granted, and they don't. Oh, I don't want to work so hard. I feel underappreciated. It's like, man, in the old days, they, I guess they don't make them like they used to, but
that wasn't work, Juliano. That wasn't work. We had fun. We always had fun.
I can tell you that I learned from these guys what is, being at the right place at the right time, the hard work, and now in my second career, it exposed me to like human life and human suffering and all these things that have helped me through my career now, in my second career, but. Yeah, it's great to see you, Gary. You've always been an inspiration, at least to me, and like the other guys. So thank you. Good to see you, man.
Well, thank you for the
Good
kind
to see
words.
you, Juliano. Yeah.
I did not know I had such an effect. I was just doing my job.
So, well, I don't know if we have to. We shared.
Sure, if anybody wants to. Yeah, let me go ahead and share that.
And if you guys want to leave your opinion, your review in our survey, Juan's gonna share the link for that. If you click there, it's gonna prompt you to the library's different departments. So this is the TEC, Melrose /TEC, and my name is Pedro, and you will see my name in the drop down menu.
So because this event is brought to you guys by the library, we do appreciate the feedback. It helps us, build these programs and have them available for you guys. And if you give us feedback, it will help us make better programs for you guys. So make sure you fill out that survey. The answer to the first question, like Pedro said, I'm going to type it on the chat so that it's main library TEC Melrose, because I know that you're going to want to, when you get the first question, it's going to say something like, where did you attend this event? And you're going to say online, but that's actually the answer to the first question. And the answer to the second question is going to be, who was your host, which your host was Pedro. Our guest was Gary William, but you'll only see Pedro's name there.
Where is the, reactions? Is that where it is, Jeff?
It's on the chat. There's a link that says survey.
Oh, I got it. Got it. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you, guys. You were wonderful.
Okay.
Pedro, you were especially,
Yeah.
thank you for working with me and arguing with me and doing an excellent job of editing. Okay? Appreciate it.
Yeah. I enjoy it a lot, man.
Tell my son that we're going to send him a video.
Yeah, he can hear you.
Oh, okay. Hi, Chris.
Okay.
I hear everything. I've just been keeping quiet, guys. Very proud of you, Dad. Doing great.
I'm proud of you
The
too,
only
boy.
problem is that the volume is very low.
Volume is very low on your end.
Yeah, so next time you guys need to advise whoever's watching that they should get some speakers or some headphones like you're wearing so they can hear it better. Because I tried doing it through the TV and it wouldn't let me. I tried an HDMI through the TV, it wouldn't let me. And basically, we've just been looking because I had friends over watching, but we haven't been able to listen that well.
I'm sorry about that. I believe probably that's in your end because I've been listening well. I'm not sure if you won't have any feedback.
Got to be your
about
computer,
that.
Chris. It's got to be your computer.
Yeah, I think it's that.
Hey Chris, I got headphones too, so I was able to hear it. But listen, if you can email me, Chris, if you can email me.
Headphones and the others can't listen, but I mean, if we had the little speakers or something connected to it, it would have been fine.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
But anyway, it's been super.
But we can send you the video. We can send you the video. We will record in this session. Yeah. All
I
right.
would love.
I got a copy too, Chris.
All the pictures and stuff.
Yeah. So thank you very much, everyone, and have a great night, and hope to see you in any other event soon. Okay.
Good night.
Thank you.
Good night, everyone. Good morning to you.
Good night. Good night, people. All right. See you, Gary. Talk to you later.
Okay.
Okay, man. All right. Bye.
Hey Chris, in case you would like a copy of the video soon, I'm actually gonna have it render. It's gonna take maybe about 5-10 minutes. Email me. I put my email in the chat, riverajuan@ocls.info, and I'll send you a link so you can watch it. And with the link, you'll be able to actually download it and take the video and stuff like that.
And I got a copy too. I recorded it too, Chris.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Perfect.
Saludos, Gary.
Hello.
Nice talking to you.
Muchas gracias a todos. Un placer.
Yeah.
Igualmente.
Gracias.
Adiós.
Okay. Gracias, Iván. Te veo.